broken our laws against the manufacture and use of fraudulent visas, passports, and social security identification. They have cast illegal ballots and formed political blocs to support politicians who champion their cause. They have skirted tax laws while insisting on social services paid for by taxpayers. And they have forced the overworked and outmanned U.S. Border Patrol to create a new category of illegal entrants called OTMs, other than Mexicans. These are Arab speakers, Asians, Eastern Europeans, Latin Americans, and others. During the last 4 years, the serious consequences of mass immigration have become more obvious. Numerous state governments are near bankruptcy because of having to provide various benefits to the hordes who have broken into our country and thumbed their noses at our laws. Yet these law-breaking invaders delight in receiving welfare, housing, medical care, education for their children, and other benefits. Illegal immigrants have accepted work at lower pay scales, thereby lowering the wages that can be earned by citizens and legal immigrants who are awaiting citizenship. Added to this development is the severe economic downturn that has left millions of Americans unemployed. Yet, as immigration specialist Robert Rector has concluded, if current laws were enforced, there would be 10 million jobs for legal citizens. Because of our nation's recession, a small percentage of illegals have left our nation. Occasionally, the slight decrease in their number, less than 10%, has been pointed to as proof that the problem is being solved. This is absurd. There are still many millions in our country who should not be here. History shows that amnesty for illegal entrants only encourages more to illegally cross the border. An extensive survey taken in Mexico by the liberal Pew Hispanic Center showed that 40% of Mexico's citizens, that's almost 50 million people, would like to move to the United States. Are we willing to accept all of these people and more into our country? In 1986, Congress passed and the President signed the Immigration Reform and Control Act. It granted amnesty to 2.7 million illegal immigrants who are already here. The politicians who crafted this bill assured opponents that they had solved the immigration problem. They informed fellow legislators and the American people that there wouldn't be any more illegal crossings of the border. But just the opposite happened, as even more illegals started flooding across the southern border. We turn again to William Jasper of the New American Magazine. He has some important perspective about the supposed worth of any amnesty proposal.
We have no excuse for falling for another program of amnesty. We know the consequences. We've seen it many times. We have had many different amnesties already implemented in this country. We're told this is going to be a one-time thing. We have several million illegal aliens in this country who we should just give amnesty, let them become legalized, then they'll become productive citizens, they'll come out of the shadows, and everything will be wonderful. Well, we've done this time after time, and what we find out is that as soon as those people are legalized, those people who are here criminally are legalized, we see a chain migration. They bring in more family members, or it encourages people who are completely unrelated to them to come into the country. One amnesty begets another.
There's another serious side to the illegal immigration problem. Amnesty rallies frequently include displays with signs stating, "Today we march, tomorrow we vote." Occasionally, children of illegal immigrants show up wearing shirts or carrying signs that say, "Future Voter." Eliseo Medina is an executive vice president of the huge Service Employees International Union, SEIU. He was quoted in a recent issue of Whistleblower magazine as follows: "Can you imagine 8 million new voters who care about our issues and will be voting? We will be creating a governing coalition for the long term, not just for an election cycle." Medina, himself an immigrant from Mexico, is also an honorary chairman of the Democratic Socialists of America, the U.S. arm of the Socialist International. The originators of the Socialist International were Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. Leaders in the early 20th century included communist Vladimir Lenin and Joseph Stalin. Gaining ballot position for the 8 million that would surely be influenced by men like Medina would dramatically shift leftward the election results in many parts of our nation. If this man gets his way, the Declaration of Independence will be canceled, the Constitution will become a quaint relic of past history, and the United States would become a mere part of a world government led by totalitarian socialists. When he served in the White House, President George W. Bush legitimized the use of Mexico's matricular consular identification cards for immigrants in America. These cards were then used by illegal immigrants to obtain driver's licenses, open bank accounts, and in some areas where scrutiny was lax, even register to vote. In 2008, career State Department Foreign Service officer David Simcox published a report claiming that at least 1.8 million and possibly as many as 2.7 million non-citizens had voted in the 2006 election. States most heavily affected by this growing corruption of the voting process include California, Florida, Texas, New York, Illinois, New Jersey, and Arizona. The already serious attack on the voting privilege will only get worse with Amnesty. Again, we recommend enforcement of existing laws, including demonstration of citizenship as a requirement to cast a ballot. New amnesty proposals, if passed, will reward upwards of 11 million lawbreakers with the most coveted status in the world, free access to America and the road to full American citizenship. This would reduce to mockery the road traveled by so many who complied with our laws, entered our nation legally, stood in various lines, studied to pass citizenship tests, learned the English language, pledged to obey all of our nation's laws, and gratefully assimilated into the American system.
I now declare that each of you is a citizen of the United States.
Everyone knows that our nation is a nation made up almost entirely of immigrants. Either we ourselves or our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, and others came here from elsewhere. None of them wanted anything more than to be free to work, to produce, to keep the fruits of their labor, and to pass on to children and grandchildren the wonderful system of limited government that has made our country the envy of the world. Our ancestors came here legally, quickly learned the language if they didn't already know it, adopted the American culture, and attained full citizenship. Our nation still welcomes 1 million legal immigrants every year, more than the rest of the world combined. But the invaders who have come here illegally are demanding the rights and privileges of citizenship while threatening to destroy the nation.
It's a time of war, and it's time to revolt, and it's good time.
Invaders are different and should be treated differently. President George Bush and other U.S. leaders, especially some corporate leaders, see the people of Mexico as a source of cheap labor or even a source of recruits for our thinly spread military. In March 2005, President Bush hosted a meeting near his Texas home attended by Mexico's president and Canada's prime minister. The three men launched the Security and Prosperity Partnership, a scheme to abolish the borders separating the three countries, leading to the formation of a regional government similar to the European Union. Ultimately, world government was their hidden goal. The leaders of the three countries have continued to meet every year. Their plan called for dealing with the illegal immigration problem by abolishing the borders. Their desire was to create a North American Union. Another part of the plan included construction of a massive highway system from southern Mexico through the United States and into Canada.